This is the A-level alphabet. If you're in GCSE, it should hopefully give you a tiny insight into what's coming up for the next 2 years in A-level maths, and if you're in year 12, it should give you a brief overview of what's to come in year 13. A is for arithmetic sequences. So previously, you've been given a sequence and you might have to find the next few terms or find the nth term. Now we might be finding the sum of the first however many terms, or you might be given the total sum and you have to calculate how many terms there are. B is for binomial expansion. Previously, you've expanded brackets, 2 brackets, or triple bracket expansion. Now we extend this to something to the power of, let's say, 6, where you're not going to be doing it by hand. There's another method that you can use to make it much easier. C is for circles. In GCSE, you only look at circles that are centered on the origin. Now we look at circles that are centered not on the origin. How exciting. D is for differential equations. So you know how to solve equations. Well, now we need to solve equations with derivatives in. If you're in GCSE and you don't know what a derivative is, then D is for derivatives. Before, you've estimated the gradient of a line by drawing a tangent. Well, a derivative is something that makes us work out the exact gradient on any point of any curve. And a differential equation is when we have an equation related to that we get to solve. E is for exponentials. Previously, you've been introduced to this new number pi, 3.14. Well, exponentials are something related to this new number, e, 2.72 approximately. And we'll do lots of fun stuff with that. F is for friction. So previously, you've used speed equals distance over time. Now we add friction to the equation to make answers a bit more like they would be in real life. We still ignore air resistance though. G is for graphs. We've seen straight lines, circles, sine, cos, tan in GCSE, and what we do in A-level, and especially second year for these last 3, we introduce different types of graphs, quartics, sec x, cosec x, and cot x, as well as a few more. H is for harmonic form. Again, you know sine and cos, but did you know any combination of sines and coses can be written in a specific form? And that specific form we call harmonic form. I is for integration by parts. So if you're in year 12, you'll know integration, and integration by parts is basically a way to integrate harder things that you can't integrate yet. And if you're in GCSE and you don't know integration, well, you know how to estimate the area under a curve by counting the boxes. Well, integration finds the exact area under a curve, no guessing involved. J is for geometric sequences. I've been a bit creative on this one. Previously, you've seen sequences that might say times by 2 to get to the next term, or in this case, divide by 2 to get from 2 to 1, 1 to a half, 1 to a quarter. We extend that knowledge just like we did for the arithmetic sequences by thinking about the sums. This time we may even find the sum to infinity, which means we add up all the numbers that are in the dot dot dot. We never stop, we'd go all the way to infinity. Of course, geometric does begin with G. I've taken some liberties for this letter. K is for Kettenregel, which is the German word for the chain rule. Again, not finding a letter K, bit tricky, but I think this works quite well. If you know a composite function is f of g of x, the chain rule, or the Kettenregel, sounds much more poetic in German to me, differentiates this composite function. L is for logarithms. Now, you know the rule a to the m times a to the n is equal to a to the m plus n by the laws of indices. Well, a logarithm is a new type of function and it's got its own set of laws involved. Also, links back to the exponentials above. M is for the modulus function. So you've done reflections before. Well, the modulus of a function, the modulus of f of x, is a graph, is a new type of graph which reflects all the negative bits into being positive, but the positive bits stay where they are. N is for Newton-Raphson. Now you've heard of Newton, of Apple fame. Well, now you get to learn about Raphson. of Newton-Raphson chain. O is for outliers. In GCSE, you call them anomalies. In A-level statistics, you call them outliers instead. We do go a bit further, we give them an actual formula as well. P is for pulleys. You've heard of pulleys. And now in A-level, we actually look at the maths behind a pulley. Q is for the quotient rule. A quotient is a fancy way of saying fraction, and fractions you've definitely heard of. What we're going to do with that is use that letter D from the alphabet to find the derivative of a fraction. R stands for radians. We've worked in degrees, and only degrees, up until A-level. Well, in year 13 we introduced radians, which are another way of defining an angle, which involves pi. S is for sigma notation. No doubt you've heard of sigma. Well, in mathematics, sigma is used to represent a sum or summation. T is for trigonometric identities. Good old sine, cos, tan again. We know those from GCSE. Well, this time we create an equation. Whenever you divide sine by cos, it's actually exactly the same thing as tan. And there are a few other identities that you can learn along the way. U is for a U substitution. So you know integration, either you've done it in year 12 or you heard me mention it above. Well, sometimes integrating things is quite hard. So what we do is we substitute something else in and it makes the integral a lot nicer. It's definitely my favourite subject in maths. V is for vectors. In GCSE and in the first year of the A-level course, you look at two-dimensional vectors. While going into year 13, you get to see three-dimensional vectors. How exciting. W is for why. For example, why did I sign up for this? You might be asking yourself this question some number of weeks into the course when it gets tricky. Persevere though, you will understand the maths and you will be able to answer the questions. X is for X. You know X, it's the same X from GCSE, first year maths, A-level maths, all the same. Y is for y equals mx plus c. You know your straight lines, y equals mx plus c. You do a bit more on straight lines, but there's actually nothing new. There's just not many things that begin with y. And finally, Z is for zero correlation. You've done strong positive or weak negative correlation in GCSE. In A-level maths, what we do is we actually test if there is a correlation or not by comparing certain values and writing a little conclusion. Well, there you have it. That's the A-level alphabet. What was your favourite letter? And which one are you looking forward to most in the A-level course? If you can find better options for J, W, X and Y, do let me know below. Hope to see you again soon.